Don't worry. I won't start without you. Hi kids. Welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza. This sleek baby seal is Winnie, and this is Cheese. All right, I swear, she just is like, oh, you're recording? Let me stand here so everybody can get a nice view of my profile. You're the star. You know, we are here today to do a recent reads. Why? Because if I wait too long, it's too many books. It's overwhelming, and I like to do this while it's just a little bit shorter. So let's talk about some books we've read recently, right, Weenie? I don't want to kiss. Just a hug. Is that better? You can lay down in my lap. That's fine. There's just 65 pounds of you. No, let's just go right in my lap. You're going to go all the way down? Just half-mast. Okay. All right. The first book we're going to talk about is The Phantom of the Opera. This is super shiny, so I'm going to try my best not to blind you. This is a classic, and I read it because I was participating in the Phantom of the Opera themed romance readathon hosted by Maggie from Maggie's Books and Stuff. I was a co-host. I had a really good time. My team won, but they did a great job. Anyways, this quick little read right here is actually not that great. I'm not gonna lie. I was warned ahead of time that this is very different from the Broadway musical, from the movie adaptation. This author, I believe, wrote a lot of like procedural kind of like cop mysteries, and this definitely leans towards that. This is jumping around in between all these different characters, kind of doing this investigation into what has happened at the Paris Opera House. We have this character, this mysterious character known as the Phantom, who is up to some hijinks. He kind of haunts the Paris Opera House, and he has his eyes set on the beautiful Christine, who is a rising star within the opera. Christine is in love with a man named Raoul, and he is her childhood love, and he wants to marry Christine, and the Phantom doesn't like that. This was really kind of hard to get through. It's very dense. It's a little bit dry. It felt a lot more police procedural, which, not that there's necessarily a huge amount of police procedural in this. There is a little bit of investigating, but I don't really tend to love police procedurals, especially ones that are written. I have no idea when this was written, and I don't feel like Googling it right now. It was a long time ago, you know? It's a classic. But I read it. I have now officially read The Phantom of the Opera. And to keep the points going, I decided to pick up a Phantom of the Opera retelling. So the next book I picked up after that was The Midnight Duet. And this is a contemporary romance that used The Phantom of the Opera as its inspiration. This ended up being an okay good time. It's silly. It's kind of campy. It knows that. And I feel like it didn't overdo it, but it definitely leaned into some of the silly aspects of the story, which made it much more successful for me. I think I ended up giving this 3 stars. This is the story of Erica, and she used to be a very famous and slightly selfish, well, not slightly selfish, very selfish Broadway star. She was beautiful, successful, and mean. One day, Erica is involved in an accident during a rehearsal for the next big Broadway show she's going to star in that disfigures her. So she ends up kind of tucking her tail and running to Paris, Nevada, where her aunt, or was it her grandmother, some family member has left her a opera house, which was actually at one point an opera house, and then it turned into like a brothel at some point, and now it's just this derelict building that used to be an opera house. And she is kind of trying to capitalize on the fact that it probably is haunted, it looks creepy, and she is trying to keep it afloat with the last couple dollars that she's got. She's not necessarily a recluse, but she's not integrating herself into the town either, because they all sound very close-minded. But she's got a scar that is from the incident that she doesn't necessarily cover, but she will wear her hair a certain way to try and take the attention away from the scar that she's received. Well, one day she gets an email from a glam rock band out of Germany. They are looking for somewhere to record their newest album. They want to do it at the Spooky Ooky Opera House. So she says yes, so she can keep the lights on and pay the bills. This group of glam rock rockers show up, and she has an instant attraction to Christoph, the main lead singer. Now, he has a secret that he's keeping from the rest of the band right now, and Erica figures it out pretty quickly, and these two start meeting up for midnight rendezvous where she's giving him singing lessons. Because of her history of being a Broadway performer, she has an incredible voice and is teaching him how to properly use the pipes that he was born with. Well, in a lot of ways. I did not mean that innuendo, but like, It's there. You got it? So this is spicy. It's silly. They go to Vegas at one point. They're glam rock rockers. She's this like goth chick that's got a scar, but she's still super hot. And it's just fun and funny and has little hints at Phantom of the Opera all the way along. This isn't going to change the world, but if you're looking for something that's a silly good time that's Phantom of the Opera inspired, I highly enjoyed that aspect of it. 3 stars, you know? Good enough time. The next book I picked up after that was The Haunting of Ashburn House. And this is a book that I talked about in my haunted house recommendation video, which I will link both over there and in the description box if you're interested in seeing all of the haunted house nonsense that I have consumed and wish to consume in the future. I love a haunted house book. And so I know that Darcy Coates is kind of seen as the haunted house book author. Like, this author writes lots of haunted house books and they seem to all be generally successful for everyone. Everybody loves a Darcy Coates haunted house. So I decided to pick up this book because it sounded very just formulaic haunted house. And it was. It was a good time. We have Adrienne and she has recently, sorry, Cheese is backing up. I don't know if you can tell, but they are literally like both on top of me right now. Let's see if I can move it without Winnie getting angry that I'm not currently petting her. Yes. I will continue your pets. This is the story of Adrienne, and she moves into this house that she has recently been willed by a family member she didn't know existed. Adrienne's having it rough right now. She doesn't have but a couple of dollars to her name. She's been couch surfing, just living in people's apartments for short term just on goodwill and friendship alone. She doesn't have many possessions in the world other than her cat, and she suddenly is told that she owns this property, and so she gets in a cab and heads to the property. When she gets there, the house is very spooky ooky. There is a hallway full of oil paintings that are incredibly realistic. There's strange messages carved into different parts of the house, symbols and little phrases. The house is just on the other side of a forest from a picturesque small town, and when Adrienne ventures into this small town, she starts learning the lore of not only this great aunt who willed her the house, but the family before them, the ones that built the house, the history of the house. It gets spooky, it gets creepy, and it goes exactly the direction you think it's going to go. I wouldn't say that I was incredibly scared by this, but I enjoyed the ride. This is definitely an author that I would be willing to pick up more haunted house books from because she set the atmosphere just right. Creepy woods, dark and scary, scratching noises, hidden messages. This was a good time if you like a haunted house story. The next book I picked up after that was Salt and Broom. And this one I picked up because it is a witchy Jane Eyre retelling. And if you like Jane Eyre, which I like Jane Eyre, witchy Jane Eyre just sounds like someone took your favorite dessert and was like, hey, should we add more chocolate? And you said, absolutely, I would like this with even more chocolate. Witchy Jane Eyre. How I was describing this to people was, this is basically if someone who obviously loved the story of Jane Eyre took the story and took all of the red flags out of Mr. Rochester and then added some witchy stuff in. They were like, listen, Mr. Rochester has just got way too many red flags popping up. This man looks like a golf course. There are just red flags on every single hole. We are going to just get rid of all that and make him a more well-rounded and not so strange guy. He owns this property and he writes a letter to the school that Jane works at, basically saying, hey, I need a witch. Things are going wrong and I need a witch's help. Jane just happens to be a witch working at this school for girls, and so she's sent out to help Mr. Rochester. I liked the magic in this as well. It's basically mixing of herbs, intentions, different flowers and plant lives, and collecting dew off of plants. And it's a very like natural nature type witch that Jane is. And she comes to this estate. She meets Mr. Rochester. And even though he's a little grumpy and a little stern, the two of them seem to click almost immediately. She then tries to unravel the mystery of what's happening, using her magic to try and keep the people of this estate safe, figure out what's going on. Mr. Rochester is trying to figure out what's going on. Romance starts. This was lovely and sweet and witchy, and I liked the parts that were callbacks to Jane Eyre, and I liked all the things that were changed as well. This goes a little bit further into the witchy, and I enjoyed that because I like witchy kind of magical things. So if you're looking for something witchy Jane Eyre, this was a sweet good time and an easy read. The next book I picked up after that, I was feeling my fantasy romance again, and so I decided to pick up The Fay Kings Curse. Books. And this is the first book in a series that a lot of my friends on Goodreads absolutely adore. And it sounded to me like a lot of people, the first book they enjoyed, but the series gets better as you go along. And so I was pleasantly surprised with how much I enjoyed the first book, which makes me want to keep going. This is the story of Quinn. And I believe when she's around 11 or 12 years old, she lives in a house that has a secluded wooded area and a river/creek situation nearby. And she spends a lot of time alone in the woods by herself. Quinn gets made fun of for the way she looks, for different things she's into. She kind of feels like she's a very solitary childhood. And she is spending one day by this creek when she hears a loud noise and sees someone in distress in the water. She helps save them. And when she pulls this child out of the water, she realizes not only is he the same age as her, but slowly things start to come to light. His ears are pointed, his eyes are a beautiful shade of lavender, and she learns pretty quickly that he claims to be a Fay prince and that he is also blind. Of course, at first she just thinks he's being weird because some kid randomly shows up in the water. Quinn and this young Fay prince named Kyrian strike up a friendship, and then for years, Kyrian keeps visiting Quinn. When one day, Kyrian gets the news that Quinn will be leaving to go off to college, he does not accept this, and he kidnaps her and takes her to the Fey realm. But it's like a fun nap. It's like a happy nap. like a fun kidnap. He is terrified of losing Quinn, and he has told her about his land and the curse and why he's blind, and he can't lose Quinn. She's his one true friend in the world. Quinn feels the same. I had a great time with this. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was silly and fun and spicy and Faye and a different Faye story that I could totally get behind. I am excited to keep reading on in this series. I think, first of all, the cover is ridiculous. And so just don't mind the cover. I also feel like this man that is on the cover, I have seen him on multiple. He must be like a clip art. No, what's the word? Stock photo that a lot of fantasy romance authors use, because I have seen this man so many times on a cover. This is a silly good time. It's fun. It's spicy, it's Faye, it's traveling to different worlds, it's one of my kryptonites in books. Traveling to a different world, especially a Faye world, like I'm in. And the last book we're going to talk about is Kingdom of Villains. And this book I actually ended up DNFing. But I will say I actually picked up another book from this author not too long ago and enjoyed a lot of it. So it was just this book. It's not this author. This is the story of Fia, and her uncle is the king, and he has recently captured some important person from the opposing side of this war. And Fia interacts with this person in the dungeons where he is being kept because she has recently found this creature that was orphaned, and she's worried that if anybody finds out about these creatures, they're going to want them destroyed, but she's caring for them in the dungeons at the same time as this person is in the dungeons. So they strike up a conversation. She finds out the fate of this person, what her uncle and his allies plan to do, and in a moment of stupidity/desperation, she does the thing she shouldn't do, and she frees the prisoner. It seals her fate, and she ends up having to be used in political alliances and political machinations. Things are happening. Here's what I'll say about this. We sped through the opening of this book. It could have been so interesting, this relationship, this friendship developing. We don't know who this character Cole is. He's trapped. We're trying to figure out who he is. And we have Fia, who she is this unimportant royal, and these two could have developed more of a friendship, but we were speeding through that part because this author was trying to get to the spicy bits so fast. This was just spice. This was just spice. And it got to the point where I was so bored because nothing really consequential was happening. We were just getting through conversations to get to the next sex scene. And although sometimes if that's what you're looking for, I'm happy for you. You found it. Here it is, girl. But sometimes I need a little more substance to my meal. I need to be invested in these characters' relationships. I need to care about these side characters. I need to care about all these things that are happening. I did not care about anyone. We were just going through scenes to get to the next sex scene. That's all this was. And so I DNF'd it because sometimes if it's all spice and no flavor, the meal sucks. You know, you have to have flavor with your spice. I think I made it to like the 76% mark before I finally gave up. So I gave it a good try. But that, kids, is where we are going to end this recent reads. All of my furry friends are passed out in very strange positions. If you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there wherever you are. And I'll see you next time.